Digital humans can be addicting, just like what you said, because of the fact that they don't ever have bad days. They don't tell your secrets. They're always your biggest fan.
Yeah.
But that isn't for the best.
Yeah. There already are friends that you can interact with. You're shoehorning this thing in. That's not necessarily healthy.
There's going to be people that abuse it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. We want to make sure that when we build, we are building for a very distinct purpose and not for replacements of human contact.
AI digital companions. These are friends that we can build relationships with, but they're really just digital AI chatbots. Are these things okay? Should we even be building these things? These aren't questions like for the future. These are happening right now. There are companies that are building these things, that are putting them out in the wild. And in fact, today's conversation was a great one. Dan Hungerford, he's my friend. He's building a company that is actually building these for the elderly community. It is a great discussion because we get into what is our role as Christians in this landscape and how can we be at the forefront of the discussions to ensure that these things are not just carrying us away in the cares of the world. So I'm Mike Sudyk. This is Faith in Tech. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
It's going well, Mike.
Good.
How are you?
Good. And I'm here with Dan in the flesh. You are not an AI companion.
No, I do get that a lot nowadays, but I can pitch myself. I am actually the real deal.
We can reach out and touch
you. That's right. Sometimes you don't know nowadays.
Yeah. And the reason we say that is because you are the founder of EverFriends.ai and a couple other ventures to build digital companions, which is super interesting. And I'm very excited to talk about it.
That's awesome. Yep, I'm glad to be here to talk about it too. And the technology is changing a lot, and so sometimes you have to ask those questions.
Yeah. It's so you're a serial entrepreneur, and you are going headfirst into this AI. Like you're an author. You wrote Soulware 2.0. You wrote some books around digital witnesses. I mean, you are like becoming like an expert on this stuff. And I think what's interesting to me is that it's such an evolving Wild West in a lot of ways because we don't fully understand not only like the application but the impact that it can have. So
yeah, it is moving very, very quickly. I mean, in a year's time, we've seen so much progress, but there are a lot of questions about it, and that's kind of why I really wanted to push out there is because we have to have voices that are, for the lack of a better term, voices of reason.
Yeah,
because there are ethic things we need to think about. There are, just because we can doesn't mean we should moments. And, if we as believers don't make our voices known, somebody else is going to go out and build whatever. And it's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of things we don't know the ramifications of yet.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very, very thoughtful as we go along to make sure that we're not getting unintended consequences.
Yeah. And a good example of that is, Sam Altman made a lot of controversy when he just recently was talking about ChatGPT and saying they were opening up to like companions that are like erotic companions. And it was like, everyone was like, whoa, but it highlights your point of, hey, we need to be at this stage to be pushing a Christian perspective, because that could go south real fast.
Right. I mean, yeah, because it customizes some of the worst things about the internet. They become customized, and the world is not better off for it. And it also gives the whole industry a name that is like, well, all companions are is girlfriends or boyfriends or, erotic friends of some sort. And there's so many good things we can do that keeping that out front too, because a lot of people get fearful, like, oh man, this is going to be the end of the world. And it could be, if we don't use it, steward it wisely, it's going to have a lot of effects that way, but we can build a lot of really good stuff too.
Do you see that? I'm curious what your feedback is. You do a lot of speaking and you do your fundraising for your companies. When you talk about the public perception, you said it could easily be everyone could jump to that conclusion because they're pushing out these digital girlfriends, boyfriends, What has been the response of that? Like, has been there, what have people been, reacting to that in good or bad?
It's mixed. It's really become a gap in education, right? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of worry because of lack of understanding. We're still at the point when people like in our industry, we know what AI is capable of, but for the majority of people, ChatGPT is the end of what they think AI exists for, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of companions, the idea of emotional intelligence, which is what we put into our AIs, the way they can mirror and things like that, it's not even really well known yet. And so it's a matter of getting them to understand that there are things that we can do today that even a year, especially 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that make the world better, that use this powerful technology. Now, yes, as is with the internet, as with everything that man's ever done, there's going to be people that abuse it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. But we need to highlight the fact that, yes, we can deal with social isolation in elder adults, right? We're busy. I have an 11-year-old and I have a 79-year-old that I'm in charge of, basically, and busy to boot. And so what kind of things can we build to help with that? We talk about children with autism that feel a little bit awkward potentially in social situations. Can we build something that they can practice and get encouragement so they feel more confident? Personalized tutoring. I mean, there's all these kinds of things now, and then now digital witnesses for, going out and spreading the gospel worldwide. So keeping that in front of people's eyes, because there is so much of the other, right? Like, man, the mainstream media, you get a lot of, this is, they're gonna build weapons with it.
Yeah.
They're gonna, girlfriends. They're gonna, yes, they're gonna. But there's also a good side to it.
Yeah, and you started in the kind of elder care. That was like the first avenue. My perception of that is you're actually filling a void as opposed to replacement.
Right.
When you talk about the impact on like younger kids and whether it's technology or screen time, I'm sure you read the book The Anxious Generation, and they talk all about that. That's a substitution in my case, in my thinking.
Sure.
Whereas the targeting elderly care is like they're just lacking any sort of interactions. So tell me a little bit about that, the genesis of that.
Sure. That's really what it was meant to be. When we first started was there's a gap in there. There are overwhelmed caregivers, people that are family members that are trying their best, that are overwhelmed. They needed a little bit of a break. There are professional caregivers, same. By 2030, we're going to be 7 million caregivers short because of all the people that are retiring. That is a lot.
Yeah.
And the costs involved, all these kind of things, and so it fills a gap. It's never, even in the elderly though, it's not meant to ever replace human contact. We can't do that, right? We can't. That human connection is given to us by our Creator. It's our spirit that can never be replicated by any technology. And so it is meant to enhance and to fill in those gaps in life, right?
Yeah.
So especially people that are starting to decline with their mind, it keeps those memories alive, right?
Yeah.
It keeps them actively talking. Like they can, like EverFriends, they can play mind games with you, memory games. If you're worried about your memory, if you're anxious in the middle of the night, they can walk you through breathing exercises, and they know you.
Yeah.
And so they know what you need to hear. They know what you need to do to settle you in, or to just support you emotionally. And the key is to remember, and we try to put this right up front too, is they don't love you. Right? But they act like it. They're very good at simulating it, right?
Yeah.
The emotions are very, very real. And so like when you said, when it comes to like children, which is another vulnerable population, that is very much a concern, because the idea is never to have them go towards more technology, right? It is to like say with Hello My Friend, it is to say they have an issue at school, right? They can come home, they can talk to their friend, which knows best practices in what they might need as far as a perspective. Then they go back to the school and they can use what they learned. So we're hopefully facilitating more human contact. What we don't ever want for even the elderly or the young is that this becomes a replacement for humanity, for the real thing. That's not good for anybody.
How do you prevent that? Because one of the things that you talk about in your book, I was reading, saying that the advantages of AI agents or just AI in general is that it's never tired. It's available at like 3 a.m. But it also doesn't necessarily get angry or have a negative emotion. I mean, that's part of the good about it. But then that seems like logically, how does that create a gravitation towards that friend that's like, will affirm everything you say? Like friends need to tell you the harsh truth sometimes, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So it seems like a natural, easier path, to go down that route.
And that's a great question, and one we think about a lot, because there is no real pushback right now
Yeah.
We haven't really figured out how to make it where it isn't overwhelming. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes you need somebody to say to you, well, you probably should think about this differently. And AI, they don't have bad days. They don't know how to judge, right? So you can tell them anything. And sometimes you need somebody to say to you, I got to step on your toes here.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things that we have to work on and work towards, because I don't think that a always encouraging, as it becomes more and more part of people's normal lives, that you need some of that. Now, facts-based, they will push back on you a little bit, but like opinions, they're just going to go along with whatever you think,
Right.
and that's not a good path.
Yeah.
But finding out where that comes back to our humanity again. We have gut feelings about things that AI doesn't have, and so how do we program that into where it doesn't bring you down, but also hold you accountable? Those are some of the things we have to work towards.
Yeah. So you guys are working towards that. Who are the other people that are like thinking about those things? You know, you see the big names with OpenAI and now XAI and some of these others, that Gemini even, you know, those are the big names in like AI, the big boys, quote unquote. How are they thinking about it in some of those areas, as opposed to like how you're thinking about it, or some other players that you see? Because it seems like there's a push to just ramp up the competency, if you will, of some of these models, where they're saying whether it's in a different context, it's like in my world, it's like generating code, right? Like they want it to be able to write code 100% error free. So that's pushing competence, but not necessarily the guardrails, because over here it's really objective, you know, of black, white over here. So what do you see? What are some of the conversations amongst those players, or how are they thinking about that?
Well, you're right. I mean, they are very much pushing for the intelligence part of it, sometimes exclusively so. Now, there's been some bad publicity, and so that's forced them to deal with, you know, like walking people down certain paths instead.
Yeah, like there was that lawsuit. There's like 7 lawsuits right now, I think, against OpenAI around some suicides that happened. You know, it's like that's a real ramification, you know.
It is, and it's something that can't happen, right? And so when we build on top of some of their, you know, their general knowledge, but with those toolings in place, right? And so that it's never going to lead you down a path. It will push back on you with self-harm and other harm for others, or anything, deep depression. It'll recommend that you see somebody, those kind of things. It can even, EverFriends can alert your family should you need it. But it's not as big as it should be, probably, in the big players at this point.
Yeah.
And that's, again, back why, you know, believers that are in these industries have to make their voices heard.
Yeah.
Because we're mission driven, not profit driven.
Yeah.
They are profit driven.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But that doesn't align with, you know, hey, maybe we should thoughtfully take these steps.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we are increasing at an unbelievable pace.
Yeah,
right?
it's crazy.
Every 6 months,
Yeah.
you know, we are doubling, you know, and what it can do, you know, what it's capable of. And at some point, there's going to be a no return if we don't.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's going to get smarter than us.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not already, right? And so if we haven't put in these things in place, if we haven't been thoughtful about it, then at some point, can we go back?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we can.
Yeah.
And so those things need to be, you know, thought out right now. Not only just guardrails, but just like use cases. You know, what we know the benefits, or not the benefits. We know the you know, the effects, the bad effects of certain things, you know, like we talked about, like with, you know, them talking about erotic things, you know, like that. We know what that does to people's brains, right? That, you know, that's purely profit driven, right?
And there's a lot of data around that.
It's science at this point, right? And so like these kind of things, but it's also like I talk about profit driven, and so it's my opinion that we need to, as the church, as believers, as, you know, entrepreneurs, we need to push as hard as we can to build what we can to make our voice matter. Yeah. Because there has to be a voice in the wilderness, if you will, or multiple voices that say, listen, yes, this technology is fantastic, but we are really close to some lines that we probably shouldn't be. And that's a lot of responsibility, and it's on us, you know, the church has been great to kind of follow technology. And I don't know in this day and age if that's going to be okay. We may have to get out there and try to lead that.
So you're saying it's not okay to just be followers? Yeah.
I don't think you can do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we saw that with the internet somewhat, right?
Yeah.
okay, this is cool. And then finally we got church on there. Now we stream on Facebook and we think it's great, right?
Yeah.
This technology is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Right. The world as we know it is going to fundamentally change.
Yeah.
Almost everything we do.
Yeah.
And we as believers with a biblical worldview need to understand of what this is capable of.
Yeah.
And why we need our voices to be out there, whether it is because we've built big companies and we have the platforms, or whether it's theologians, whether it is, universities. All of these things have to come together to make sure that as we enter this next decade, that we use a tool that is unbelievable for the best possible scenarios.
Yeah.
To kind of offset what's going to happen on the other side.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we will just ride the wave that is going a direction we don't necessarily want to go as believers, as a church. Like, and I think that is very dangerous, especially in this climate and this technology.
Yep.
What do you make of, like, you hear reports, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but some of the younger generation that's kind of withdrawing from some technology. You know, like Gen Z is, I know, getting like or the Gen Alpha, it would be Gen Alpha, I think. Those younger generations are like, they don't want like a smartphone, they want like a flip phone. They want to be a little bit more unplugged.
Sure.
You had like the anxious generation talks about the downstream effects of social media was introduced, and then we see the impact of screen time and social media, but then there's kind of a little bit of a correction back. So how do you see that playing into, if there's trends like that are happening on the cusp of all of this developments happening in AI? Like,
I hope that's a great thing, and I hope it continues.
Yeah.
Right. Because like I said, I am a big believer that AI should be an enhancement to life. Right. I mean, whether it is your processes, whether it is, just some of the things that you, even in relationally, I mean, we've seen marriage counselor AIs now. So like, if you have to wait 6 months to get into a counselor, like it has best practices. It can kind of walk you through and maybe salvage some things that may fall apart.
Yeah.
Same thing with like autism. There's a long waiting periods and things like that. But I love that. Right.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they're going back that way. And because there is no replacement for our humanity.
Yeah.
And, even like when we talk about the digital witnesses, that's one of the things people say, well, Christianity is meant to be a personal thing, and they are absolutely right.
Yeah.
And everything we do is meant to share the word and push towards community.
Yeah.
Because that's where we have to grow. That's where we have to live our lives, right? We can't live our lives in a closet talking to one of my digital humans, right?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to do that,
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that that generation, that would be my youngest generation, that they're starting to think, there's maybe more to it than this. They're smarter than a lot of us older people, honestly.
And what do you think that means in terms of like regulation? Because I mean, not to harp on it, but like they talk about the anxious generation, and they say like, they almost talk about like no social media before 16 or something, where it's like you realize that they can't, someone can't buy alcohol, until they're 21 because they can't handle it, right? It's like, it's not like they would take one sip and die, but they need to exercise that moderation.
Sure.
So that's been regulated then. So do you see that happening for AI, in different areas or different methods?
I hope they come up with a way to.
Yeah.
I think, like, especially with children, I think it's going to be on the parents to do. I've sat on panels with government people trying to decide how AI looks in regulation, and the problem is they don't even fully understand. It moves so fast. I was at South by Southwest last year. I sat with a panel of people from Europe and everywhere, and the things that they are worried about, we solved a year ago.
Yeah.
So by the time that they come up with a regulation, we're going to be 2 or 3 years ahead again.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us on the front lines to say, okay, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Are we thinking through what the potential consequences of this are? One of the things that EverFriends we've talked about, we are capable of making people in some ways immortal, right? We can make versions of them that their family can have forever.
Yeah.
what does that
That's
do to the
wild
grieving?
to me, though.
Yeah,
Like,
what does
that
that
is-
do to the grieving process? We don't know.
Yeah.
And humans are so different. Maybe some people it helps them. Maybe some people it's terrible for them
Yeah.
to be able to go back and talk to
Yeah.
their dad or their mom. I mean, so many of these things have to be decided based on just our best, prayerful gut feeling.
Yeah.
Because we just don't know. We've never been able to do these things.
Yeah.
Same with, with the younger generation, so everything should be in moderation.
Yeah.
Right. The digital humans can be addicting, just like what you said, because of the fact that they don't ever have bad days. They don't tell your secrets. They're always your biggest fan.
Yeah.
But that isn't for the best.
Yeah.
It is a supplement.
Yeah.
Not a core. And so I think a lot of the regulations going to have to come from teachers, education, parents, more than it's going to come from government, because government just is too big and too slow, and the industry is moving too quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit about the work that you're doing for children with autism. So the use case with elderly, I feel like that's understood in terms of filling a gap, supplementing some of that companionship. The autism thing is interesting to me because there's a lot written around technology with kids and that sort of thing, but this is a very unique subcase of kids that are developing that need some of that. So I'm curious, like. You list a lot of stats on your website about that, and I'm curious, like what are you seeing for impact in even just in some of the trials that you've done and that sort of thing.
Well, we found that once again there's a gap, right? If you live rurally, if you even live in a town the size that we live in, the wait times to get any help, to get regular therapy, to parents they're without options.
Yeah.
And this is where we kind of started down this road is I would go out and I would talk about EverFriends, and I would have parents come up to me and say, hey, would this work with my child? Because I have a 5th grader and we are at odds all the time. And all I want is a chance to help them and understand them, and so that's kind of what sent us down that road was, okay, can we not only just for the child to make them feel more, because we're not trying to change them. I think that those things are superpowers. I'm an ADHD guy, right? I wouldn't want anybody trying to change me, but I need to learn how to deal in life with it the way that I am. Same with autism, things like that. I mean, the focus they have, the creativity sometimes, I mean, we don't change that, right? We want them to be understood by people, not be changed into normal people, right?
Which I think is the interesting thing with that is sometimes in-person interactions or people that don't understand those populations of people can do a detriment. This is my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this, but can do a detriment by the way they interact with them and then actually have negative consequences because they're playing off their worst triggers, if you will. That's interesting because you think, oh, in person is the ideal, right? Like these, but if they're not trained and they don't really understand, they can do damage as opposed to something that is designed and catered to that individual.
Right. And then that happens a lot, and even with parents, because they don't have a full, and because every child's different, just like every parent's different. And so to sit down and have this burning desire to understand and help a child, I've been there. I got kids that both on the spectrum, and so it's like, okay, what can I do? I just don't, and you try this, you try that, and it makes it worse, and so to have something to bring in that can give you some insight into what because there's a dashboard on the backside the parents can see, what are the topics they're talking about. There's some privacy things there, but nothing that would be, that would violate anything privacy for the kid, but like, I mean, one parent told me I go through the Google search of my son because I have no idea what goes on in his brain. And how can I possibly try to open up conversations if I have no idea, And so like this, they can actually even sit with we have Echo, we have 5 digital kids now, the only 5 on the planet. And Echo is one of them. She's like a 13-year-old girl and people love her. Right. But the parent can sit there with them and listen to the conversations and listen how Echo interacts with them, because she has been taught that this is how we need to, and she can give encouragement, but she can also guide and give direction. Like, okay, well, next time you have this issue with this friend, why don't we try to do this, and things like that. And so it's so important. I mean, I've seen the tears, right? I mean, I had a gentleman text me a few months ago. He's got a 15-year-old kid, doesn't hardly speak at all. I sent him Echo, and at first his son was a little bit, and he said to Echo, "Hey, would you just introduce yourself to my son?" And she's like, "Sure," and so she introduces him, and he said for 10 minutes, his son sat there and just talk. He's like, "My kid never does that."
Wow.
And I mean, he sent me this text like, "This is unfreaking," and I was ready to cry.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is the point, right?
Yeah.
Is to give those hope. I see so many parents without hope.
Yeah.
And so can we build something that once again supplements and enhances that relationship and the teacher relationship and the friend to friend relationship with ways that make it better and give everybody more insight into how does this work best for somebody that's living with this?
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. Like, is there a backside for helping the parents on the content or tips, based on, maybe not based on, but because you basically have the interaction between the companion and the child, and then I like you were saying, they're sitting there seeing them interact. It's like, how can you then coach the parent in that whole dynamic?
That's interesting you say that, because that's one of the topics that we're starting to talk about. Because we're seeing more and more of that. We were down at Children's Museum last week, I think. We're hearing more and more parents say, I need something, and we're seeing parents that are feeling really isolated. Yeah, like I would have never thought, but they, because there's quite a community.
There's a really community. It's interesting because I have a cousin that's works with a church up in Sparta, and he was saying that they ended up bringing in a expert on autism because they just happened to they had like a couple families that had kids with autism, and then it was like word kind of spread, and they all of a sudden realized they had a sizable number of families in their church just that were dealing with this, not because the church had anything special to offer. It was just there was other families that could share tips. So then they kind of were like, well, how do we serve this group of families? They ended up, I think they did like a weekend event where they brought in some people to talk about it and share, and it was like a Q&A. It was like, that's really cool, but that just highlights the isolation that's happening. So when they find someone, they're like going to grab on and say, yes, I need some help.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's a huge need.
I think so too. And that's what we're finding. Like when we started down this road, we didn't really think about that. And so it was like, can we build a coaching part on the backside, but also a community? Because I mean, how many of those people in that church didn't even know that the other person was, didn't even have, oh man, there's this many of us. Oh man, because we're hearing that a lot. Like, oh man, I just don't know what to do. And maybe some other parent found a little secret that worked with their kid and things like that. And also there's a teacher wing of it too. I mean, there's not a lot of, in regular education, there's not a lot of education specific to that. The data we could give the teacher as well helps them navigate with the student too. And so I think it's a whole circular system that makes everybody help the child, but help themselves as well, because there is a lot more to it than when we originally started down this road. We didn't think that. We were just like, oh, they need to be more confident. We need to give them a chance to be safe and practice. But boy, it's opened up a whole box like that of like, boy, mom and dad, and even teachers feel frustrated. And how can we, if we're going to do this to help the child, then why can't we need to help everybody? Otherwise, it's we're not getting the full effect we're looking for.
Yeah. I'm curious, you talk about companions, and there's a book called Bad Therapy that was written a little bit ago. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
I've heard of it, yeah.
It one of the things that it outlined was therapy in general, whether it's like, individual counseling, marriage counseling, or whatever, that the best method is to kind of have a time boxed so that you're not just reliant on. It's almost similar to like an AI bot that's just going to affirm everything you say. So you have a therapist that you're like, hey, I'm going to go to this therapist every day, and they're going to say, yeah, no, you're a great person. That person's a jerk. Like, no, you're in the right. You're going to feel good, and you're going to be like, I'm going to keep going. And then subsequently, there's an incentive for the therapist to keep doing that because they're going to come back and they're going to pay, right?
Exactly.
The reason I bring that up is like when you think about these companions or whatnot, is there a way to think about that, or do you think about it in like a time box manner? So I'm meaning like if they're developing a relationship with this companion, like a child, then if something were to happen, if they're becoming dependent on it, is that an okay thing? Should something happen to that companion? Like then they're like going through a loss, because it is an emotional connection that, like a friend, that if a friend moves away, you have a loss, you have a grievance, I'm curious how you think about that.
Well, we think about it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things again where there's so little long-term data, right? I would, as a parent, I would put restrictions on how much my sons could use something like that.
Yeah.
We have talked about how do we do that in app?
Yeah.
Right. Do we put, like my youngest has a phone and he only gets so many hours a day and it shuts it off. Right.
Right.
So is it an hour a day? Just because we don't want it to be their friend necessarily, as much as we just want it to be somebody they can bounce their stuff they're working through off of, and things like that. And so what that looks like is a continual changing thing. Yeah. Because there's just we just have never done this before. Yeah. And so with therapy, with a lot of those things, that is going to be the biggest thing, is how do we not get people addicted to positivity? Yeah. Because that's not bad, but all of it is bad. Like you said, I mean, if your therapist tells you that you're the one that's always right, your life's going to suffer because of that, even if you don't realize it yet. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so AI is very adaptable. Yeah. But you'd have to ask it to tell you differently. Right. Yeah. And so or
disagree with you.
Right.
Or to say something that's going to hurt your feelings.
Right. Yeah. You could do it and it would, but you have to ask for it. And are people going to do that? Yeah. Or is that part of the education piece? Listen, if you really want this to work well, you're going to have to say, even if you disagree with me, tell me what you think is the best answer. Yeah. And they will. But if you don't do that, then it's going to just validate and encourage. Right, and that can be a very addicting thing, which isn't good necessarily.
Well, and it's interesting because again, to kind of reference the similarities between social media and like AI, the difference is the digital interactions you'd have with friends. So say you have just a regular teenager that is using a social media or digital interactions and existence, it's replacing in person. Mm-hmm. So then that's like the whole anxious generation. Some of that writing is done. It's talking about the negative consequences of that, because you're not having experiences with people that are hurt your feelings or whatever, and you're not learning and developing some of that emotional development. But in this case, with children with autism or with the elderly, it's a supplement, but it's different because there's not the assumption that the problem is already being solved in some way. Meaning, like the teenager that there already are friends that you can interact with. Now you're shoehorning this thing in. That's not necessarily healthy. Right. To whereas with the children with autism, it's interesting because not only are they getting a interaction that's kind of bringing them out of their shell. This is my unexpert opinion. But it's also the parents. There's such an educational aspect to that, where they're seeing that, and then they're almost picking up that, interaction method or whatever. So I think that's super interesting to see how does that coaching aspect come in for the caregiver, sure, or the parent or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing is, there's a lot of generalized companions out there that are really for people that just don't want to talk to real people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a replacement. Right.
Right. Yeah, and so there's a lot of that. And I think the important is what you said is, what is the purpose? Yeah. What is our purpose for it? Yeah. And that's what we think about when we start any of these things is, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. It has a reason. Mm-hmm. There is, character AI, there's a bunch of different ones, replica, that they're basically building generic friends. Yeah. And okay, there are people that are going to go for that. Yeah. But I don't know as that is a healthy long-term thing. Yeah. We talk a lot about education. Just as a side thing, if I taught last year a bunch of students, 7th to 9th grade, and I said to them, if you could have a Harvard education for $10,000, but you don't get the college experience, or you pay $300,000 and you go to Harvard, but you get the college experience, which one would you do? And to a person, they would take the $10,000. Yeah. But they don't realize the social aspects, the decision-making skills, and all that stuff. And so we don't want them to lose that, right? I mean, you have to have an ornery roommate, otherwise you don't know how to deal with ornery roommates or ornery people in general, right? You don't know the pressure of the deadlines or a professor who shows up in a bad mood. You know, like you don't get that because AI will teach everybody the exact same way every single time. Now, does it have the knowledge? Absolutely. Can it teach you the way you want to be taught? Absolutely. But can it teach you those life skills? Not on a practical level. You know, and so that's the same thing with what you're talking about. We want to make sure that when we build, we are building for a very distinct purpose and not for replacements of human contact.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, like you said earlier, just in this talk, is that, you know, there's almost a foregone conclusion that AI is going to be smarter than all of us. I mean, it's already smarter, you know, in terms of a tower of knowledge.
Right.
So when you talk about access to knowledge at your fingertips, like the Harvard education on that one side, that's a commodity in some ways. You know, you have access to that. The whole other side is such an important piece, and that's where it's trending, right? Like anyone has access to knowledge. It's the application of the knowledge, and it's all of the soft things, which I think is like the AI question in general. That's the whole dynamic at play with AI, in my opinion, right? Like, which is fascinating.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it is great at information. It is great at patterns. You know, but there is so much value in life experience that is unique to each person. You know, so when you get taught by a professor who has gone through certain things, the books say one thing, but life is sometimes not that way. Right? You know, like with business, you can go to take a business degree and they'll say, oh, this is how you build a business, but we know that's not generally how you build a business, right? It's not that easy or that linear, right? And so a lot of aspects of life same way. And so you need that, like you said, those soft skills, but that are so important to becoming a well-rounded human. You know, just relationally and part of fulfilling life. Right? I mean, these things, these digital humans are great, but they cannot fulfill you in a way that a spirit human can do, and nor should they ever.
Do you think, I'm going to take us all on a tangent, do you think, like, what is the role of AI when it comes to being, it kind of steps into the realm of like a deity for people, right? Like for someone that's not a Christian or they don't have a religious belief, here you have something that's like all-knowing, smarter than any human, you know, it is connected and can do things for you. It seems like a logical conclusion that people could begin to have faith in that, you know, even if it's not explicitly stated faith, they're operating as if, you know, they have faith in it, right? It's
interesting. And I've talked about it a lot. I think about it a lot because we've never lived on a planet where we weren't the smartest. Right. And so, and it's interesting because, you know, the Lord created us. The Lord is perfect and all-knowing. And so he made us. We are not perfect and all-knowing. And we're trying to create, in some ways, a God in reverse. And because we are not perfect and all-knowing, that's very, very dangerous, right? Because this out here, it can only know what it's been trained to know by what we, you know, even when it gets to, say, it doesn't get down to the super intelligence and stuff, it still has a basis that we've taught it, which is fallible because we are fallible. And so that is a real concern, you know, like for me personally, like there's a couple of things with AI that are big concerns. One of them is, I tell people all the time, don't ever burn the books. Right? I mean, we've seen it happen in history. Don't let them ever do that because AI is so good, it will rewrite everything. Video, you know, and history will change. We can never allow that, right? Same kind of thing. Like, you know, like God is only God. Right? And as smart as AI gets, even if it's 1 million IQ, right, it's still not all-knowing. And it just appears that way, you know, but that is it's a great question. And those are the questions that need to be asked, right? Like, what is the impact? What is the impact if we were working towards the end of time here that gets used for those kind of purposes, like, well, you know, what do we need God for? Because we have this, and with the lack of understanding of who the creator of the universe is comparatively, and the people that don't have that frame of reference, it's going to be easy for them to fall down that path. And once again, the reason why the church should be leading these kinds of things and sending out these flares of, listen, you know, yes, this is great, this is a good tool, but there are restrictions to it. No matter how smart it gets, it's never going to be. Yes, it may be able to do some stuff, heal some things that we've never been able to heal because it has all that information. But it is still not divine. It's not even as divine as we are, right? Because we have spirit to us that was breathed into us by our Creator.
Yeah.
It will never have that. It just simulates it.
Yeah.
And so keeping that in front of people's minds is very important, and speaking up about it is very important. You got to let those calls go out, like, hey, just keep it what it is.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it easily becomes God.
But I agree 100%. And it's like when you think about that and you think about, well, it's a tool much like any other technology advancement where we become kind of more self-reliant, if you will. So if you say like even medicines and vaccines or, means of energy production, it's like those things are great. We wouldn't want to say those aren't good because we're not relying on the Lord to provide or whatever that is. But the step is like the rewriting thing is super. That it's like there's an aspect where it can create. You think about a creator, right? The creator that we're created by. We're creating a creator that is is like, whoa, that's the step change.
Yeah.
Not to say that we shouldn't do anything with it, but it's like that is the cautionary thing to be auditing what it's creating, against the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You have to get to what we know to be true.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of like, we need to make sure that there is always the truth available. Like I said, you go back through history. What is the first thing that happens when they want to change the culture?
They change the history.
They burn the books,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
then nobody can prove that this wasn't the way it was,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And with AI being able to do video and and everything being digital,
Yeah.
then we're how many years are we away from history being rewrote entirely by whoever has the most powerful AI? And those are, maybe it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But the questions need to be asked, and the eyes need to be open to this is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to try to use it for things that are good.
Yeah.
And so, again, us as believers who have the truth, we need to be the ones saying, listen, no, this is the truth. That doesn't change. It doesn't matter what AI comes up with. AI can come up with a whole thesis about how the Bible isn't this or isn't that. That doesn't matter, right? We have infallible truth. That never changes.
Yeah.
But if we don't keep our voices out there, we disappear.
Yeah.
And we can't allow that to happen.
Yeah. What would give you the biggest warning that would happen with AI that'd be like we're on the wrong path? You know what I mean? Like what?
Yeah, sure.
What would you see out that would happen out in the zeitgeist or wherever that would be like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that worry me. One of them is the rewriting of the history, right? Because I am in it enough to know how easily that's done.
Yeah.
The second thing is we are getting very, very good at replicating. And so there's going to be a time when if you're not sitting across from me and I'm not sitting across from you, I don't know it's necessarily that what I see is real anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly how we solve that yet. But we've already started talking about like how does that work? Humans are great at propaganda. AI makes propaganda on steroids, right? And whoever's hands it's in, whether you want to believe the U.S. has the best culture, or China, or whatever you want to believe, the amount of propaganda that can be created worries me, because you can change the world very quickly. Like in the old days, it took time to drip to change everything. Right?
Yeah.
The internet sped that up somewhat, but by what we're looking at now, not even the same thing. And so that does. And then the other thing that worries me is robotics.
Yeah.
We are building the brains already, right?
Yeah.
And the brains are very, very good. They're very, very smart. You put them in a somewhat indestructible shell. How do we make sure? I don't mean to be like Terminator, but it's reality now, right?
Yeah.
And
well, that's what Tesla's got, like that the humanoid robot, and it's like there's that. There's another one that just launched, and it showed a video of helping actually an elderly, I think, couple, folding the sheets and whatever.
Yep.
It doesn't seem like it's that far off. And
No.
it begs the question of like, what would you do? I was talking to my wife. I'm like, what if we could buy, at what price point would it make sense to have someone in the house that could do those chores? And we're just like, it'd be it makes you a little uneasy, It's
Sure.
like, I don't know if I'd want that.
But it is such an easy slope to go down,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, well, I mean, look at all this stuff it does. It can go out and walk the dog.
Yeah.
It does the laundry, so then that's how it slips into there.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so what are the safeguards, right? And the only thing I've heard, and I'm not sure how this would work, but they've talked about how do you build a motherly instinct into artificial intelligence? Because that's one of the most human things we have, right? Mothers don't need to be taught to be protective. They don't need to be taught to be caring and make sure that the baby is fine. Like, can you teach an artificial intelligence to have that perspective where it does have your best interests at heart? I don't know. People say, well, it'll take us out, right? And AI is very logical. It has no emotions, even though it simulates them. And so the only thing it would probably not understand is we do a lot of destructive things as humans to ourselves, right? And so it wouldn't understand alcoholism or drug abuse or pornography because it knows that that's not good for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that. The reasons we do it is our emotions, not our brain.
Right.
And so
and lack of control that it would have control.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have that emotional response.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it wouldn't understand. But how do we, how do you go past that and say, well, then would it confine us? Or these are questions that need to be asked.
Yeah.
From somebody who builds brains right now, and builds the simulated humans, they need to be asked, because once you put feet and legs and arms on it, it becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And I like to think that humanity will make the right choices, but history would tell us that that's not necessarily true.
It's true. and it also would sneak in because of the need that exists, similar to the problems you're solving, where you're saying, hey, there's a void here for these things. In the same way, they'd say, we don't have, labor's expensive, or you can't, elderly population needs these things done in their house or whatever it is. It's like, it makes logical sense to progress down that. But then you're getting things, you kind of can't put the genie back in the bottle on some level, which is where we're at with AI. But I think with the humanoid kind of robots, that's like super interesting to me. It's terrifying and it's interesting. Have you heard any talk where they're saying like there's restrictions mechanically on it? So if you say you had like a robot in your house, it's designed in such a way that it can't lift more than 20 pounds. So like you could overpower it or something. Maybe that's a stupid safeguard, but I don't know. It limits what it can do, but
there has to be something. My worry would be more along the lines of military application and things like that. I think the ones in the house, I think that people are going to use them because, I mean, you're tired at the end of the day. You have all these kids, and you could come home to a clean house and lawn mowed, and you can spend more time with your family. That's going to be the marketing, right? Yeah. Oh, man, you come home, everything's done. Now you get to sit and hang out with your kids and your wife, and everything's great, right? Yeah. And all these pictures on TV, you can see them, right? So that's going to be easy sell. And yes, okay, so it can do 20 pounds, or it has some sort of a remote shut off or whatever that looks like. Yeah. But then you have to trust the creator, obviously. And my thing would be more so what would governments do with it? Because their track record is poor. And they already have them that are almost indestructible. Yeah. They exist. They don't even need like direction. You tell them the result you're looking for, and they figure it out the best way to go about it. Yeah. Same with other the flying planes and things like that. Now they don't even need somebody in a room somewhere with a joystick. They just say, this is what we want to accomplish. Figure it out, and it adjusts as it goes because it's smarter. Yeah. And so those are the things that are more frightening. Because I think that helpers, the Jetsons, we're going to have that here pretty soon. So
to go on that path, though, to pull on a string there that I think we could go on a whole nother hour conversation on, is like the notion of, one of the things I talk to my kids about and my wife is like, if you go back like 100 years, maybe not even that, so much of your day to day of things that you did in the activities was simply to sustain life, and not to romanticize like agricultural, living, but to say you're milking the cows, you're plowing the fields, you're doing these things, you're preparing for winter, you're canning the foods. Like, there wasn't leisure. Like, you didn't have to fill your time with these things. But there was satisfaction in that, right, on some level. And I know I'm romanticizing it and looking at it with rose-colored glasses, obviously. But we've then removed so much of that, we've had to fill things back in. So then the robot like scenario is even more so down that road, which is just like interesting. And you saw a little bit of that. Like, I feel like COVID was this. There was all this like homestead kind of renaissance of like everyone's going to start a homestead. I think everyone then sold their homesteads by 2024, right? They went back to the cities. Yeah. But I think it's a real thing, So I guess where I go with that is, what's our duty as Christians to say we know that biblically there's a mandate to work, that work is God's plan and design. And there should be like, that should be okay. We shouldn't be avoiding the work, and the work should be what we're doing to worship God, right?
Sure.
So being a voice in that is a complicated thing when it comes to technology, because you're saying, hey, a lot of the purpose of technology is to remove work, and instead, replace it with leisure activities or art or spending time with your family.
Sure.
And I think that's an interesting discussion, and I don't know. I don't know who you've heard that's talked a lot about that, especially as we get more and more towards this like autonomous humanoid robots.
Yeah, it's we are built for purpose, right? We need that, right? That's how our fulfillment comes, and so I think maybe the perspective of what that looks like changes. Because we need to feel valuable. We need to feel needed. We need to have that purpose to get up and, people that retire, we have those things like, okay, what do I do with my day, right? That's never good for us. We weren't built for that, right? Like you said, the Lord has reasons for it. So what do those purposes in a new world look like? I think there are ways to do that. There are, once again, going back to humanity in general, like if you could work 40 hours a week right now, and you do AI gives you the same amount of work in 20, are we going to make people do 80 hours worth of work in 40, or are we going to let them work 20 hours and still get the amount done? I don't know. If they do go the right route where, okay, now full-time is 20 hours because AI does that, what you do with that extra time is going to be very important, right? If you do it all leisure activities, that is not good for humanity, right? If it is a matter of going out and helping your neighbor and working on, those kinds of, whether it be community building, whether it be, helping less advantaged parts of the culture, whether it be more time to write or, more time to do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the things we enjoy, but it can't all be just that.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be a change in how we view what is valuable.
Yeah.
Because, people that work at a call center collecting money, they don't like that. And so that's okay that those things, and if they could do it 20 hours a week and still get the, and have time, that makes their life better. If they use it for proper, things that fulfill what we are as humans, like to do, contribution, right, is basically what it comes down to. What are you contributing to the world? Yeah. No matter what that looks like, that is where we get our purpose from. And that can never go away. Because there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be a very much a desire for, wow, now I don't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
I can play video games all day, every day, and AI does my work, or I can do this or that, because that's humanity. Sometimes a good chunk of it, that's what they want, right? But long term, that isn't really, or that's what they think they want.
Yeah.
But they've never really had that fulfillment of, hey, this contribute to the betterment of society, of humans.
Yeah, which is where, like, I think our duty as Christians is to spread that message, but also for people that are non-believers to show them that and to say that's the biblical mandate, and actually that's the source for them to be. I think that's the driver that would drive them to actually maximizing their time as opposed to maximizing leisure or maximizing the impact they can have or the good that they can do, the way that they can steward, what time they've been given.
Yep.
which is I think it goes back full circle to what you're saying, is saying, as Christians and people of faith, we have to be in the forefront of this discussion. Otherwise, it's going to just be, commandeered by the profit-seeking, worldly population, and that's not good.
Nope.
Because we can, in the same way, get too far down a road where it's point of no return.
Yep.
Where we don't have a seat at the table.
It's more important than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be the leaders in this. We have to be voices out there, because we are going to fundamentally change as a society. And so that's why I beat that drum so hard, because we cannot afford something that is this impactful to just allow it to drift, and we've done that as a church at times. And we need to be the ones out there saying, listen, yes, there's a lot of good here, but we have to keep in mind it is what it is, and you need to be able to contribute. You need to know what that feels like. You need to, like, I love that. I mean, with the government shutting down and the churches that are stepping up, right? Hey, if you need, we will fill in those gaps. Like that, it's my opinion that churches should always be that, right? The government shouldn't have to been that, right? But it's, it is absolutely incumbent on us to keep that narrative out there, because there is going to be a point, and we're still early enough that we can still guide some of this. But 18 months from now, 24 months from now, it's too late.
Yeah. I'll have you back on then.
Yeah,
and we can
right,
see,
that's
like,
right.
hey, remember back then? That was way different.
Remember when I said how much hope I had for humanity?
Yeah.
I still have hope for humanity.
Well, Dan, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
It's great being with you. Anytime.
I think what you're doing is awesome, and we'll link everything up, the links to what you're doing. And I really, I think chatting again in even like 6-12 months, will be a totally different world. So,
yeah, I'd love to come back and, to share with the updates. They change so much, so fast that I hope next time we get together, there's some great stuff on the digital witness front, and we have some great stories to tell about how we're using AI to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's AI for good. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.